Sundown Close-Up, we sit down with Democratic congressional candidate Annie Kuster. We'll get her take on health care, gas prices, and the probable rematch against one Charlie Bass. Also on the show, former Governor John Sununu with Mitt Romney finally locking up the nomination, we think. We'll get his thoughts on how the race changes for the presumptive nominee. Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Josh McKelvin. A couple of years ago, Democrat Annie Kuster nearly pulled off an upset in what was certainly a big year for Republicans, narrowly losing to Charlie Bass. In 2012, the landscape has shifted a bit, and Kuster is back for what she hopes will be a rematch with a different outcome this time around. Annie, welcome back to the program. Good to see you.
Great to see you, Josh. Thanks for having me back.
No problem at all. So I was always wondering about this. How much of the last 2 years have you spent thinking, if I had only done this a little bit differently or said this, maybe I'd be, up for re-election at this point?
Well, I don't have regrets. I don't look back. It was a big Republican sweep, and we ran an incredible campaign. I'm very proud of the effort we put in, and sometimes it's just a tough break at the end of the day, and so I'm back at it, and we're going to win it this time.
So I was looking forward, not so much looking back. But what did you learn from the last campaign?
Oh, it's an incredible process. I love getting out and campaigning around New Hampshire. I've lived here my whole life, and just the small towns and the neighborhoods, and people are really engaged here in New Hampshire. They really care, and they're looking at opportunity and fairness for their families and a lot of hope for the future. Even in tough times, people are really looking ahead. How can I get my kids to school, get my kids to college, give them the opportunity that they deserve?
Sure. 2010, obviously a huge year, I just said, for Republicans. 2012, the landscape has changed a bit. How are the talking points different this time around, do you think?
Well, the biggest difference is running in a presidential year, so there are thousands of voters who didn't participate in 2010. Everybody's still very concerned about the economy. We're talking about jobs and creating good jobs. But the biggest difference for me is that people are very negative about the Republican Congress. They see that Congress is broken, that the special interests are controlling the day, that their interests aren't being heard, and they're very much wanting to reelect the president, but more importantly, turn that Congress around so they have a voice in Washington.
Do you think that the American voters are looking at it and blaming the Republican Congress at this point? I think
they are. With the Ryan budget, I think people realize that this is not about fairness. It's not about their families, the middle-class families. People are very tuned in to the Buffett rule, for example. They want to see tax fairness. They want to see millionaires and billionaires pay the same as secretaries and postal workers. And so they're looking for that opportunity for their own family, and they just want a fair shake. They just want a fair shake from the government that they will have the opportunity and that their children will have a better life.
Let's talk about the health care debate. Obviously, everybody's waiting on the Supreme Court decision on whether, all of it's constitutional, part of it's constitutional. We'll see what happens. How much do you think this will impact the debate moving forward in November if part of it is found, part or all of it is found to be unconstitutional?
Well, to be honest, I don't think the voters are hung up on which parts are constitutional or unconstitutional. I think what they're concerned about is the cost of health care delivery right here at home. And so what I've said throughout this debate about health care, I think it's great to increase access, but we have to focus in on costs. And this is where probably my Republican roots here in New Hampshire.
You don't think the Republicans will be all over this if the Supreme Court decides that federal health care law is unconstitutional?
But here's the bottom line. They need an alternative. And we haven't heard an alternative from the Republicans. And their, voters are concerned about the out-of-pocket costs to them. Small businesses are concerned about the high cost of health insurance for their employees. So what I started to say, these are my Republican roots coming out. I think we need competition in health care, and we need to bring down the cost. Earlier preventive treatment, earlier screening so that people can get the care that they need in a timely way and then get back to work and get on with their lives.
All right. How about, the economy is still a big issue. Things are better than they were a couple of years ago. But for any voter that goes to the gas pump at this point, they still see that there's a long way to go. Are you convinced that the president, Democrats are closing ranks around the president. We're seeing him improving in the poll numbers here, and we'll get to more on the polls in just a second. But are you convinced that come November, if we're still paying $4 for a gallon of gas, that the president can get reelected?
Well, first of all, we won't be. The price is already coming down. But I think what people are much more focused on, again, this special interest politics in Washington, they know that it's Congress that is voting on these deep, deep subsidies for oil and gas companies at the very same time that those oil and gas executives are getting record profits and we're paying high prices at the pump. So this is the fairness that I'm getting at. This is where people want in their day-to-day lives. They need to get to work. They need to get their kids to school. They need help. And I completely agree we've got to bring down the cost of gas. But why are we subsidizing the oil and gas company with our tax dollars to the tune of billions of dollars? So that's what I'm running on. Fairness, giving middle-class families a fair shake. And look, we've got to bring down the deficits. We've got to cut those budgets. We can't afford to be putting our tax dollars in the pockets of oil and gas executives.
Sure. Do you think the president is being aggressive enough? I mean, yeah, he called on Congress to end the $4 billion in subsidies to oil companies. That didn't
and the
go
Republicans
anywhere.
vote against
well,
it.
I mean, the argument being a lot of that's for R&D and things along those lines. Still, at any rate, I mean, speculation is to blame for a lot of this. I don't know what kind of role the president can play.
They can make a difference in speculation, and I think that they should. But here's what I'm talking about. When you have oil and gas companies pumping money into congressional campaigns, like Congressman Bass, and if you take a look at his FEC reports and the donors to his campaigns, oil and gas companies, nuclear, coal, you know, these are the special interests down in Washington that are driving the debate. I'm saying let's elect someone who represents New Hampshire families, New Hampshire values, people in their day-to-day life. And I'm incredibly proud that our campaign is being funded by individual donors, average contribution $53. That means that the people will have a voice. I'll be down there representing the people of the 2nd District.
One other issue that wasn't even mentioned, brought up in 2010, that we're certainly hearing a lot about in 2012 is contraception.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a state-level issue, a federal issue. What do you make of it?
To be honest, it's a throwback. I can't imagine people in our generation thinking that the Congress is going to be seriously debating whether or not families should have access to contraception and family planning. Look, this is an economic issue. Most families cannot afford a big family. They want to be able to provide for college for their children. They want to be able to save for their own retirement, buy a home. And so people want control over their own lives. And to me, this is all about New Hampshire values. You know, the people of the 2nd District believe in liberty. They believe in liberty to control your own personal life. And so I'm a strong proponent of less government interference in people's personal lives. Let people get on with it. And frankly, I think it's a distraction from the real issues of the day. People need to get to work, and they want good jobs, and they want a good opportunity for their families.
Let's talk about your campaign. Recent poll, WMUR Granite State poll just came out, shows that you and Charlie Bass, obviously 7 months away, anything can happen, still a long way to go, basically neck and neck. Now, for Charlie Bass, it also is showing a little bit of momentum for him because he was struggling there in the polls for a while. What kind of a campaign do you expect this to be?
We're very excited about the news from the poll in that we know that voters are really hearing this message about fairness and opportunity. They've got grave concerns about Congress. They know that Congress is broken, and you know, he's voted now twice for this Ryan budget that has deep, deep cuts to programs that affect their daily lives, Pell Grants for children to go to college, and food stamps, social services, and the like, but most importantly, dismantling Medicare. And voters across the state of New Hampshire know that they've paid into that program and that seniors need and deserve to have the support. So I think, again, you talk about the tax fairness issue, you talk about opportunity for the middle class. I'm very excited about this campaign. I think we'll have a robust debate on the issues. And I'm very confident that we're going to win this race. It's quite exciting. And
you also talk about this being a presidential re-election year, an attempted re-election year. We'll see what happens. Excuse me. Pardon. How much do you plan to align yourself? I mean, where do you part ways with the president on certain
Well, there are a
issues as
number
we
of
get closer
issues
to November?
that I have taken positions that are different than the president. I want to bring the troops home quickly from Afghanistan. You know, I shared his opposition to the Iraq War. But look, I think we've got to cut these deficits. I don't think we can afford to keep the troops in Afghanistan as long as he's intending. But the contrast there, you have Governor Romney talking about winning the war on the battlefield. What does that even mean? I think there are very few New Hampshire voters that want that to happen. So there will be a robust debate on the issues. You know, look, I was with President Obama the first time around, and I'll be with him again, and I'm proud of the Democratic positions here and the campaign, but we're going to be talking to independent voters, non-aligned voters. You know, New Hampshire voters, they're very independent, and they're going to be voting all over the ballot, and I just want to make sure that that I serve the needs of those who want to make a change in Congress. Congressman Bass, in his 7th term, having voted for these deficits, having voted for what got us into this difficult time economically in the first place, and I'm all for opportunity and fairness, and we'll give it a shot.
And speaking of fairness, he's not here to defend himself right now, but I'm sure that
we'll get plenty of opportunity.
You
know, the good thing is it's not personal between Congressman Bass and me. It's just we disagree on the issues, and we'll have it. I've known him my whole life. I mean, lots of people like him, and you know, my own feeling is I'm equally likable. So they call him Uncle Charlie. You know, soon they'll have maybe Aunt Annie in the Congress, and somebody that they know they can call on and that has lived the life that they lead. You know, my husband and I, we're putting 2 kids through college. We struggled with our own college loans and paid those off, and we have the same concerns that other middle class families do across the state. And you know, I think the Republican ticket, Governor Romney, Congressman Bass, they've lived a different life. They've had more opportunity, more advantage, and I think sometimes that's hard to translate into the lives of everyday people.
And that's the last question I have, and I know you got to go. What will be the defining issues of this election?
Opportunity, fairness. I think what people are looking for is just a fair shake from their government. They're looking for a chance that their children can have a life that is as good or better than their own. And look, we're all working for that. It's about the future, and it's about looking ahead, and I'm very excited about the opportunities that lie ahead, and very patriotic and proud person, and looking forward to serving in Congress to represent the people of the 2nd District.
Well, best of luck moving forward in the campaign. Come back to the show anytime.
Thanks, Josh. Absolutely. We'll be back.